Well, last week, the Colorado Supreme Court dropped that big bombshell news that they ruled to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. And yesterday, there was a development in this case. The Colorado Republican Party officially appealed the case to the Supreme Court. And now the Supreme Court is expected to take this case because, of course, their ruling would have national implications. 14 states have bills or moved to disqualify Donald Trump. So whatever the Supreme Court decides in this case could possibly be an indicator for all the states.
That's right. So just so our viewers understand, because, people go, oh, the Colorado Supreme Court is trying to kick Trump off the ballot, whatever. So this is a very narrow Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that says that any candidate cannot be on the ballot that engaged in insurrection, a charge for which Donald Trump, in 4 indictments across 91 charges, has not been charged with, has not been convicted of, and it is not even a constitutional authority to charge an individual with insurrection at a state level. So therefore, Colorado lacks the authority, but yet they kicked him off the ballot. And that is why the Colorado GOP is petitioning this to the Supreme Court as fast as possible, saying this, quote, by excluding President Trump from the ballot, the Colorado Supreme Court engaged in an unprecedented disregard for the First Amendment right of political parties to select the candidates of their choice and usurpation of the rights of people to choose their elected officials. Unless the Colorado Supreme Court's decision is overturned, any voter will have the power to sue to disqualify any political candidate in Colorado or any other jurisdiction that follows its lead. Therefore, they're saying this would be perhaps the largest and greatest act of disenfranchisement that we have ever seen.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, they're saying, hey, if you go forward with this and we have an election without Donald Trump on it, then whoever does win either the GOP primary or the Electoral College, those votes essentially are disenfranchised because they're going to sue and have that person's basically votes taken away as well.
Yeah. When this news came down, my surprise was that it was the Colorado GOP that appealed first. I was assuming that Trump would appeal this decision. So there are some questions on whether or not they have the authority to do this, because this ruling, the standing to do this, because this Colorado Supreme Court ruling affects Trump. So can the GOP then do this? Or, so there are some legal questions.
Every GOP voter in the state of Colorado.
So timing matters in this, because you have until January 5th, the evening of the 4th, which is a week essentially from today, to print the Colorado ballot. And so what the GOP wants is a stay to keep Trump's name on the ballot. We'll see whether or not the Supreme Court acts quickly enough. But yesterday, when we were sitting here talking to Lindsey Graham, he talked about this and said, this is why the timing matters and we got to fight. Here's some of what Lindsey Graham said.
I think the Supreme Court will slap it in. A state interpreting the insurrection clause is a bad idea. This is a political decision in Colorado. They hate the guy's guts. But you talk about radical, they want to pack the Supreme Court, the left. They want to abolish the Electoral College. They want to have H.R. 1, national voting. They're the radicals, not Donald Trump. So this Colorado decision won't stand. It's time for us all to fight back.
Yeah, so he's not worried about this. Also, the Colorado GOP, their initial reaction to this, remember when Vivek Ramaswamy posted a tweet saying that if Trump's not on the ballot in Colorado, he's not going to be either? The state GOP said, don't even worry about it because we could move to a caucus system. But then apparently there would be some serious issues with that because the Colorado Secretary of State's office would need to agree to switching from a primary to a caucus. And if the ruling is that he's not going to be on a ballot, it doesn't look like they'd go along with that.
And Colorado is going first. Now, the reason why this also matters is because there are 35 now separate litigation cases that are Section 3 seeking to disqualify former President Trump from the ballot on this Civil War clause. It hasn't been used. 35 separate cases across 14 states, and that is why Colorado, what happens in Colorado is really going to have a huge impact on the other ones. Jonathan Turley was saying that this is the biggest one we've had since Bush v. Gore.
Bush v. Gore was destructive for the court in many respects. Many of the justices spent years trying to repair the divisions on the court itself. I think that the Chief Justice is going to try to get a unanimous decision here. I hope that it can speak with one voice. And that voice should be to reject Colorado's decision and to protect our democratic values, to show the public that the court itself is divided ideologically, but they remain unified on these basic values that define us.
There's a chance here this really doesn't hurt Donald Trump because if they go through this process and they have the primary election without Donald Trump on it, someone else wins, and Donald Trump still wins the nomination, chances are the Supreme Court will rule on this before the actual presidential election. And at that point, he would be back on the ballot in Colorado, and they would have just taken any opportunity for really someone to hurt him in a poll, because primaries work that way in a sense of someone gets momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And also, this Colorado Supreme Court ruling just affected the primary, so not the general election.
Exactly.
And I think that it could also help Trump in other ways as well. Eric Trump, his first reaction to this when this happened last week, he posted this on Twitter. Prediction: this Colorado decision will add 5 percentage points to Donald Trump's already runaway polls. Because, you know, every time there's these court cases that go against Donald Trump, his poll numbers go up.
Now, you're going to hear a little bit about the Michigan Supreme Court, which yesterday ruled that Trump could stay on the primary ballot. Their primary is towards the end of February, plenty of time there. And I think, you know, what Jonathan Turley was saying, by the way, about the most significant case since Bush v. Gore is significant, because if people remember back to the year 2000, Bush v. Gore was a 5-4 decision that ruled that the Chief Justice Rehnquist essentially said that the Florida Supreme Court in that case, which is ordering a recount of the undervote, did not have the authority to do that. But it was one of the most divisive cases, 5-4, in history. And so that's why Turley says, hopefully, because this clause is seeking to disqualify him because of a crime he has not engaged in, charged with, convicted of, which is insurrection, that there'll be 9-0, very one-sided, to put it to bed. Otherwise, you're going to continue to see more and more cases. They're throwing darts at the wall, if you will, which is why there's 35 similar pieces of legislation like the one playing out in Colorado.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. And if you just play that out, if it's not unanimous by the Supreme Court, then you know that Democrats are always going to say it's just because it's a GOP, it's a Republican-controlled Supreme Court, and Donald Trump shouldn't have been on the ballot in any of these states.
Correct.
And in effect, last word on this here, the Colorado Supreme Court has taken upon itself to convict Donald Trump of insurrection by doing this. And that's
He's been indicted a lot of times, not on insurrection. Of all the 91 federal indictments.
Well, that's what's so interesting about it, is that they're choosing to go after something that he has not been charged with. You can't overstate that enough. And so we'll see what happens.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.